is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Hello and welcome into another edition of 3Ma. I am John Kurtz. I have Derek Young with me today. No Cole, unfortunately, but we have a lot to talk about. This is going to be all K-State football related here and generally good things. I suppose you could classify K-State getting shut out on the preseason All-Big 12 team as a bad thing, but they were picked second just behind Utah in the Big 12 preseason poll. And, of course, K-State landed Linkon Cure out of Goodland, five-star recruit, the first five-star recruit in program history in this modern recruiting era. And you know what that means. It means you need to raise your glass of then Holiday bottled in-bond bourbon or 360 vodka from our friends at Holiday Distillery. Greatly appreciate their support of the pod as always. So, get out there, get stocked up. If you're going to be at the lake, obviously we've got 4th of July weekend coming up here. I know a lot of you guys are going to be out at the lake hanging out. Get your Ben Holiday bottled in bond bourbon. And, hey, it's never too early to stock up for tailgate season as well. So appreciate our friends, K-State folks who support us. And we have more K-State folks that support us that you're going to be hearing about more on the show as well, because Linkon Remodeling is now a sponsor of the pod. You're going to see a lot of the clips on social for them and hear about them in the podcast. But this is another great K-State company. These are great K-State folks. Had a chance to meet and talk with them. So, again, get out and support those who are not only supporting us, but they are cats as well. So if you need any kind of home remodeling, secure windows, insulated doors, quality siding, bathroom remodels, Linkon is the spot there for that. Derek, you're back from Goodland. How was scenic Goodland, Kansas for the Linkon Cure K-State coronation?
I will tell you, it was quite an adventure. One thing I would immediately, I guess, comes to mind is that I'm no longer as young as I used to be. And obviously that's not breaking news, but these are the kinds of trips.
A trip to Goodland brought that out of you?
Well, because it's like, I combined over 8.5 hours, right? Because it's there and back. I remember the next day, I was having a harder time getting out of bed than I typically do. So yeah, it's only a little over 4 hours, but it's there and back on the same day. So that took more out of me than what it would typically do in the past. So I felt old because of that. Second, the drive back was definitely interesting. We run into this straight line wind thunderstorm, which there's not even a warning out there, so you could tell like this is nothing to them, right? I think we were in Colby at the time, but it was powerful.
The oasis on the plains.
Yeah, we were actually at a McDonald's, just because we had to swipe some Wi-Fi to upload some videos, and all of a sudden all this wind comes in. It was powerful enough wind that it tipped over a trailer on the other side of the McDonald's parking lot and blew out the windows of 3 different vehicles. So fortunately, I wasn't one of those. So that's what, and then someone tried to break into my car while we were there as well.
Wait. In Colby?
Yeah, well, it was almost accidental. They thought it was their car, but it was mine. So he's literally trying to break into this car. He says it's mine. And we're kind of laughing, and then he gives up. So we think it's over. And then he goes back and gets like utensils to pick the lock. So I run out there. It's like, Wow. You're not picking the lock. That is not your car.
Man, okay. I feel like I run into that. I drive a Camry, and I feel like I see like the same kind of Camry a lot. So sometimes I've been close to doing that, but I've never gone into lock picking mode. I don't know. Boy, Colby's got to get a little tougher on crime. Apparently, is what Derek is telling us. So okay, all right. Well, it was eventful. None of that was about Linkon Cure himself. The family, the ceremony. Set the scene for me. Like, what was it like? What was the gym like as this decision was made in Goodland?
Yeah, I've been to a few of these before. Like I was at the Avery Johnson and both Avery Johnson and Dylan Edwards ceremonies 2 years ago. This one was a little bit different in the fact that, well, one, their gymnasium is really cool, by the way. They actually have like this like dome thing, like in an actual basketball arena, and it's round. So it's really cool. I enjoyed that. I actually want to go watch a basketball game there now, but I mean, it was kind of like a Kansas State pep rally. So you kind of knew what was happening as soon as you got there. And I know it's that part of the state, so it really reflects that, but it was Kansas State purple everywhere. and a little bit of a wait. It definitely didn't start as soon as we thought it would, but no surprises. Everyone very, very happy with the choice. And got to know Linkon Cure a little bit. His older brother that's going to Kansas, and good sized kid as well. Really good family.
Yeah, 24/7 made for some awkward moments there with how long they were taking to actually get to it. Now, I was watching. Shout out to Mason Bowe. I assume Mason was the one that was putting everything.
No, it wasn't me. Yeah,
yeah. Mason was the one handling everything for KSO, and I was watching the live stream there. But I got in a little bit late on it. There was still plenty of awkwardness to go around just because they had to sit there and wait. But did I see in the Discord correctly, by the way, patreon.com/3moff, you want to be a part of that? Did I see in the Discord correctly that there was basically like a hot mic blew the cover before it actually happened, where they said like, oh yeah, I'm just going to say Kansas State and then grab the hat and, whatever?
No, I didn't get to hear all that, and admittedly I haven't, and I think we clipped it out at the end. I never got to go back and watch it either. I think because they had them wait, that some of the microphones, because I think WCMH, I think I said that right, in Wichita had a live mic as well. So I think it picked up on stuff. I don't know what the exact part was, but that's just because it didn't start exactly the way it was intended.
Well, I know we talked all along about K-State. It seemed like from very early on in the process, K-State was the leader in the clubhouse here, and it was going to be very hard to knock the Cats off. What did you hear from Linkon family, whoever it might have been, about the process? Do you get any inclination that this was in doubt at one point for K-State?
I think it was a wire-to-wire win. I really do. I think there was probably one moment where it got a little hairy that they had to, refocus or kind of figure it out a little bit. When it might have been up in the air for a week or so. That was immediately after the departure of Colin Klein. I think they had to figure some things out at that time. But excluding, that moment when I don't know if they even relinquished their lead, even then, I do think it was a wire-to-wire win. What I will say is that Oregon had enough pull with him and recruited him very, very well, to the point that I don't know that it was like a blowout win. I think it was probably somewhat of a narrow win, but wire-to-wire nonetheless.
Dan Lanning is really good, man. I love that guy. I think he's a really good coach. I think it's a cool fit at Oregon. I like the way he handles himself and runs the program, and he's pretty young and just an engaging personality. Like that's a tough one. That's a tough one.
I'm with you. In terms of recruiter, CEO, I don't think you're going to find many coaches, if any, right now better than Dan Lanning. But and as long as if he gets like the in-game coaching, like the other parts, the actual football stuff down, they're going to be scary. Yeah,
and K-State had to hold off. Look, Texas A&M's got money. We know that Texas A&M's got a lot of money, and I'm sure down the stretch. It certainly sounded like down the stretch, Texas A&M was pulling out a lot of stops as far as money goes. But I don't think that. In this day and age, I know a lot of people really hate where we're at in college athletics, but it doesn't sound at all really like the Cures or Linkon himself are really all that motivated by money here, which certainly helps when you're up against Texas A&M, and it's not like Oregon doesn't have resources either, right? They've got Phil Knight and Nike backing them, so K-State still able to hold them off, and I don't know, maybe we need to be talking about K-State money after the Coleman Hawkins thing, right? So,
yeah,
three titans of the NIL money industry going at it there, and K-State wins out.
I was going to say roster-wide. I don't know if Kansas State matches roster-wide NIL efforts, at least on the football front, with the best of the best. I wouldn't say they're top five, but Oregon and Texas A&M are. But when Kansas State really wants a kid, I think they can pull out the stops.
Yeah. Anything else interesting that you picked up from talking to anybody around there that was new about this whole process?
Just that basically the four schools that kind of advanced through to the final round were the ones that they thought the most genuine coaches too. I think that played a giant role. Obviously, their son Layton's going to play for KU, so they have a lot of respect for both Lance Leipold and Jeff Grimes as well. For Oregon, I think it was Dan Lanning and assistant Drew Maringer. For A&M, obviously, it was Colin Klein. I think one thing with A&M, and I'm sure it did bridge out to multiple coaches, but having it just be Colin Klein, where I think everywhere else there was like multiple coaches where the comfort level was at a very, very high level, I think kind of shifted things there. I think if A&M had been around longer, maybe they have a better shot, but that it being really just Colin Klein, I wonder if that kind of played a role there, especially since he's one of the, hasn't been there for very long. I think that probably had an impact. I think proximity to home had an impact, which probably hurt Oregon as well. I think being closer to home is certainly an additive plus here, especially with his older brother now being at Lawrence for a little bit. So I think all those things came to play. I thought a cool story was, he wakes up, and maybe he didn't even wake up because he said he couldn't really sleep that Saturday night while he was in Manhattan, just kind of tossing and turning because he was starting to feel overwhelmed, because I think he was finally starting to come to the realization where he absolutely knew where he wanted to go to school, and that being K-State. So, he calls Taylor Brad up at 7 a.m. on that Sunday morning before they leave Manhattan, says, hey, can you pick me up and drive me to the stadium? And, Brad, goes and does it, and he goes and sits in, I think he said section 227, seat 17 or 18. I think that was like a seat where that was like his seat when he grew up watching Kansas State games. So he went to that seat and just kind of took it all in, and obviously understood at that moment that that's where he wanted to be, and has a conversation with Chris Kleiman right there. And then too, Kleiman probably got the memo that something was going down, gets to the stadium as well. And that's when he commits, and he calls his parents from the stadium. They're still at the Bluemont Hotel. So I thought that was an interesting turn of events of how that unfolded.
It's a cool story, man. That'll definitely hit K-State fans in the fields, I'm sure, to hear about that. So, all right, good stuff. Linkon Cure is a cat. We won't get to see him yet, but as far as the 2024 team, we got some news there with the All Big 12 team, the All Big 12 preseason poll, both coming out. And we are going to get to that in just a moment. We'll see if DY can carry the home field portion of this, because I've got to go to work here in a second. So I'm neutral today. I've just got the black T-shirt. I'm not wearing home field apparel.
Oh, yeah.
Derek is. Derek's got Roll Tide today.
No reason, but yeah.
Alabama needed extra support, so Derek had to jump on the Bama bandwagon these days. They lost Saban, but they earned DY. So it's a good trade. Good.
Upgrade.
Okay, yeah, it's upgrade. We'll say upgrade for the Crimson Tide. Homefieldapparel.com is where you can get that. You can also get 50-plus different K-State designs that are awesome, and you typically see us wearing those here on the show. You'll see us wearing them at Bill Snyder Family Stadium or at Bramlage Coliseum. I got the call about renewing my basketball season tickets the other day. So, got to be thinking about that. Make sure you're geared up this year. Homefieldapparel.com. You can even get 15% off your first order. Use promo code 3MA23, 15% off your first order at homefieldapparel.com, and we're back in just a moment.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
All right, a top story today brought to you by our friends at Alinco. Again, remember, great K-State folks here who are supporting us once again. So if you have any home remodeling needs, hit up Alinco. K-State is picked second in the Big 12 preseason poll, DY, that was released just behind Utah. It was very, very close. You had 5 teams getting first place votes. Utah got 20. K-State got 19. The overall point differential, it was 906 to 889. There was a drop-off to 829, then for Oklahoma State at 3. So you can see how close Utah and K-State were there at the top. And, to be honest, I know people don't love the way Utah fans in a lot of ways have conducted themselves coming into the Big 12. I mean, I'm perfectly fine with this, and I think this is, frankly, quite a bit of respect, man. I mean, Kyle Whittingham has won the Pac-12 each of the last 2 years that he's had a healthy quarterback. So it's hard to really argue too much with Utah, at least to me, being the favorite to come in and win the league, and you were just right there with, yes, we all love Avery Johnson, but it is with a new-ish starting quarterback this year, and certainly a lot to replace throughout the team. So I think it's a lot of respect to the program. It's a lot of respect to Chris Kleiman. It's a lot of respect to the talent level of Avery Johnson here to be picked where K-State was.
I agree. No real problem there with Utah 1, Kansas State 2. I would have had it flip-flopped because I'm a little hesitant on teams entering a new league. That's typically, they're a little bit, look at the 4. I mean, I know different circumstances. They're not Utah, but look at the 4 that entered the Big 12 last year and how they fared. I know that there are some exceptions out there of teams entering new leagues and being fine. I get it. I think Missouri was one of those when they went to the SEC East, but that was a down SEC East too. Georgia wasn't Georgia. I think Florida was rebuilding or going through something as well. So that's why I'm hesitant, and that's why I also too, and I'm a little bit surprised that Arizona was 5th, but I think I would have had them in the 5th or 6th area as well. I said would. I do have a story. So I would have had Kansas State first, but I didn't get my vote in time. Had I, Kansas State might be the preseason first place team.
What the hell, man?
It's a funny story because I was like, at the time, I was like, oh, Mason, I didn't get it in. And Mason and Drew did, and I think they both had Kansas State first. Don't want to speak for them, but I believe they did. I was like, I would have too, and I forgot. And then we didn't think anything of it. And I saw it come out, yesterday where it's 20-19 in first place votes. I'm like, Mason, my first place vote would have mattered.
Okay, so here's the deal. Before anybody gets mad at me, I never do the Big 12 preseason poll, and it's this year I legitimately was going to try. It would not have mattered. I would have picked Utah number 1. And look, I love the Cats. I would have gone the same way. I would have gone 1, 2, 3, Utah, K-State, Oklahoma State. But I just am always at this point in the year, you get it in like mid-June, and I'm just like, dude, I haven't, like, the preview mags are either barely out or haven't been out. I'm like, I just don't feel like I can give an accurate enough. I always approach things like I want to be researching everything. I want to know everything. I want to feel like I have a great grasp on it before I would do something like that to actually vote on it. And it's more so the all Big 12 teams than it is the actual preseason poll, because the all Big 12 teams are way tougher. It just takes more research. Like, dude, who's the best center in the league? Come on, man. And I still feel like it's dumb to have the media voting on that stuff anyway. Like, we know what the hell is going on with offensive line play. But so I did not do it once again this year. I was going to make the effort when I saw it hit my inbox, and it didn't happen, man. I've been, whatever. Everyone says they're busy. I've been busy. So I would not have affected it, but I typically do not do this because I never feel like I'm fully prepared, and I try to just be transparent and fair about that. Like, hey, I want to make sure that I've got my wits about me before I would do something like that. But Derek would have made the difference, and DY, this is what you do full time, man. This is what you do full time. So I'm going to pin this on you. The blame is on you.
Yeah, it's rough, especially once I saw how the rankings went, and I was like 20-19. Oh,
well, hey, spin zone, Derek, spin zone. Now you're not the preseason favorite. You don't have the target on your back. Preseason favorite is Utah. They're the ones that everyone will be gunning for. They have to carry the weight of those expectations. And K-State still winds up with a lot of respect. And Kleiman can, go post this on the locker room somewhere. Hey, guys, they don't think you're going to win the league. So, DY, I think you actually, you played this correctly. That's the spin zone on this.
Yeah, I did send, because we did a show on this. Okay, so I was trying to find where my ratings were. I can't find them because I actually think I had Utah 3rd. I think I went Kansas State and Oklahoma State 1 and 2. So,
well, if you look at Oklahoma State had 6 players on the preseason All Big 12 team, which is the most of anybody. So Arizona had 5. Now, one of those was a specialist. So I guess if you want to tell me, hey, Arizona had 4.
Those teams just have their firepower or their contributors are proven, and K-State's aren't necessarily. And I know we'll get into it, which is why when K-State throws up a goose egg, I'm not terribly offended by it or think it's that wild, because I even wrote a story. I don't know if you guys remember, I think about a month ago, and I might even mention it to you guys. It's like, I think K-State's going to finish or going to be a top 3 in the preseason in the Big 12 preseason standings and may not get a first-team pick, because the only one where I felt like I could remotely pound the table for was, I think, two remotely, and I don't even think you could pound the table, was Desmond Purnell and Marquise Siegel.
Well, I would even say, if we're talking about like the most proven best players that they have, I would throw in DJ Giddens to that mix, but you know that you're going against the most loaded position in the conference. So, Kansas fans, and I was sympathizing with Kansas fans who were upset that Devin Neal didn't make it, because, to be honest, Taj Brooks is a great running back, and he's one of like 6 that you could put first team All Big 12 and really couldn't go wrong. But I would have put Devin Neal as a first team All Big 12 running back over Taj Brooks.
Absolutely. I would have been Devin Neal and Ollie Gordon. Nothing against Taj Brooks, and this is going to sound like a slight to him, but because he had the yards, I get it, but he also had a lot more touches, I think, a lot more opportunities. I just think, and I think he's almost, it was like a systematic thing because they had no quarterback. So he got his because of that. So that's where I'm at. Like, nothing against Taj Brooks. I just don't think, I think his production was a product of the situation and not necessarily his talent. Whereas you could watch a football game and think that Devin Neal is the best player on a football field. You could watch a football game and think that Ollie Gordon is the best player on a football field. I don't think I've ever watched a football game and thought Taj Brooks was the best player on the football field.
And Taj Brooks, by the way, is perfectly fine being labeled as a first team All Big 12 running back. Like, he's of that caliber. There's no doubt. It's
a stat driven thing, and I get it. I probably wouldn't have even put him on my second team. If I was going to do a second team, then I'd probably go RJ. I got to go RJ Harvey and DJ Giddens. Then I think.
Yeah, RJ Harvey's really good too. Yeah, I mean, there are just so many excellent running backs in the conference. I still think, I think I'm a little higher on Taj Brooks than you are. But the point is, there's a whole group of guys that have first team All Big 12 ability there. So like for DJ Giddens, it's like, okay, your strongest, most proven guy coming back offensively certainly is like, well, I can't really pound the table when the competition there are guys like that. It's hard to get really mad or upset about it. I don't know. And then, you're looking at the rest of the offense. We both feel like Jace Brown will probably have a pretty big breakout year, but you certainly, he was young, a freshman, and was productive, but not enough for anybody to say, all right, first team All Big 12, bam. Especially when the other part of this is you have 16 teams now in the league, so there's just so many more teams that are in this. It's way more crowded than it was just a couple of years ago. So even though Oklahoma and Texas are gone, you just have way more in terms of your overall pool of talent that you're picking from. So a lot of teams probably wind up with less players on this first team All Big 12 team than you might anticipate because of that.
Yeah, and if Kansas State had I'm just looking at what the team ended up being, right? First for offense and defense. Now, I know Tetero McMillan's really good. I know people love Jaden Higgins from Iowa State. I'm not all the way there on him. He is deserving of the All Big 12 preseason team, don't get me wrong. But I'm just saying, if this was a year that Kansas State did have a proven, bona fide wide receiver, probably could have busted through, because I don't think outside of Tetero McMillan, that's not a quartet of receivers that really scares me either. I mean, Brennan Presley, I think that's just, what was I saying? That's a longevity pick almost.
Lifetime achievement?
Yeah. Longevity. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a little bit of that. And then obviously this is a year where you're breaking in some new faces on the offensive line, or at least guys that weren't starters last year. So,
yeah. I mean, you could maybe say, well, what about Hadley Panzer? I think he's a 2-year starter at this point. But, I mean, the Oklahoma State, West Virginia, and Arizona offensive lines bring back almost everyone, I think.
Yeah. Yep, and that's where, Oklahoma State has a couple of guys on that offensive line. Arizona does have one. Defensively, Oklahoma State's linebacking core obviously is really strong. Nick Martin, Colin Oliver, both there, which makes it tough for Desmond Purnell. Or I saw one media member who put out his ballot and actually did have Austin Moore on there.
I would have went Purnell before Moore, but again, hard to make a case for Desmond Purnell when you're sitting there looking at Jacob Manu from Arizona and the two Oklahoma State guys, Nick Martin and Colin Oliver. Unless you wanted to get creative, because he kind of plays the edge, and put Colin Oliver as a defensive line.
And I will say, it is not K-State the only place that has gripes here. Now, Kansas got a couple on this team. They have Kobe Bryant and Melo Dotson, their defensive backs there. But I saw Kansas fans grumbling that nobody from that offense, and like that offense is definitely the strength of the team. It's really good, but they got skunked there too without anybody. And obviously Devin Neal is the headliner there, but I'd imagine a lot of Kansas fans feel like somebody from the wide receiver core probably should have been represented.
Maybe Lawrence Arnold, I would say, comes to mind.
Yeah, so it's just crowded. I'm certainly not alarmed. I'm not bothered at all by the fact that K-State doesn't have anybody on that first team All Big 12 squad. I think the respect for the team and the program was shown by the All Big 12 poll. So the rest of that, by the way, Utah 1, K-State 2, Oklahoma State is 3. There's a bit of a drop-off between K-State and Oklahoma State. Then Kansas, fairly close behind Oklahoma State. They got 5 first-place votes. Arizona got 3, and they are at number 5. I think picking any of the top 5 to win the conference, I can understand, especially the top 4. The more I think about it, I almost close in on the top 4. The thing with Arizona is they have a lot of talent and certainly a lot of high-end talent and a great quarterback-receiver combo. That's a lot of change, man. You're changing conferences and changing head coaches, and it's not like this is a program that has been really stable and has a great foundation built up for a long time. Like, it was a pretty quick rebuild from Jed Fish to get them going. They have not had a great history, and now you're asking them to swap leagues and swap coaches with a guy in Brent Brennan who may be good, and a lot of people will advocate for how tough of a job San Jose State is, but it's not like he had a no-doubt kind of resume even jumping up a league. So you're changing coaches, and it's a coach that's going to be coaching at the Power 4 level as a head coach for the first time, and you're changing conferences. I can't get behind. I know the Arizona media is pretty high on their team. I can't get behind them winning the league.
For me, I would almost say it's those top 3. It's top 4 if Jalen Daniels stays healthy. It comes down to that for KU. If Jalen Daniels stay healthy, KU's probably as much of a threat to win the league as probably as Utah, right? Like, as much as anyone. They're as good as anyone if Jalen Daniels is healthy and playing quarterback for 12 regular season games.
And their schedule is pretty conducive.
Yes. Yeah. K-State's schedule is actually pretty conducive too. So both of the Sunflower State schools probably have that moniker this year. So let's assume Daniels is healthy then. I think it is also, I agree with 4. For me on Arizona, it's the things you said, a combination of you're switching leagues. That transition typically doesn't produce conference champions. That's why I'm also hesitant on Utah, but more so Arizona, because they're also, and it's not just head coach, right? They're, basically breaking in an entire new system, an entire new coaching staff. It's not like there were holdovers from Jed Fish. They went to an entirely different regime. So there is no like smooth transition here to something similar. It's not. And are all those bona fide stars that they're talking about, are all of them going to be just as good or better under a new staff? Probably not. I would imagine some are going to regress because it might not be a schematic fit. That's just the way that the cookie crumbles. I don't think it's going to go perfectly for every single one of those guys. So, and again, Brent Brennan, I don't know enough about him to completely criticize him, but I know enough to that before Arizona hired him, I wasn't pounding the table for that guy, nor did I know who he was really. So it's hard for me to get excited about Arizona because of that. And this is going to be a slap in the face of Arizona. I don't really care, but I'm not going to pick them to be a Big 12 title contender in their first year of the league when they never even won the Pac-12.
Yeah, I mean, and I think Arizona is very good, and they very well could win that game against K-State. I mean, that could very much be in play, but over the long haul of a season, I don't see that. I'm with you on Kansas. If Jalen Daniels stays healthy with that schedule, they're definitely contenders. Oklahoma State, I mean, quite frankly, might be if there's a school that wants to be a little tweaked about all this, they could be like, look, man, we made the title game last year. We kept Ollie Gordon. Like, we've got the guy in Mike Gundy who, I guess outside of Kyle Whittingham, or co-best coach with Kyle Whittingham, is probably the best coach in the conference, has been the most consistent. How are we only picked 3rd? But again, they are pretty close there. I think it's obvious why they would be a contender. Iowa State, that next tier, Iowa State's at 6. Some people, I did have a couple Iowa State fans grumbling with me about my comment on Twitter that anyone in the top 5 is probably a fine pick. I know Clone fans will come back at me with the 2020 COVID year, but I'm sorry. In the same year that Jimbo Fisher was winning at a high level at Texas A&M, it's hard for me to say that wasn't a little bit of a weird, fluky-ish kind of year. So outside of that, we haven't seen the high end from Matt Campbell. We haven't seen that ceiling from Matt Campbell to legitimately win the conference. And until I actually see that in a regular college football season, I'm going to have a hard time believing that. I think he specializes in when they're not as highly regarded. He has a pretty damn high floor, and just in general has a pretty high floor.
Yeah,
I think the ceiling's a little bit lower than the rest of the guys there.
That same COVID year, I think Tom Allen had Indiana, and the Hoosiers were pretty good too. Yeah. Which like throw the shit out if that's the case, right? It's Indiana. Go play some basketball. No, I'm not a big believer in Iowa State. I know that there are some what would you call them? Some little criteria, triggers there, characteristics about Iowa State that reflect teams that will have good seasons. Like if you look at like data and what some characteristics, consistent characteristics from good teams are, I think Iowa State's number 1 or number 2 in the country in returning production. I think that's one of the things that they've been talking about. That's great. I just don't think you have a system in place offensively to be good enough. And I like Rocco Becht. And maybe it looks a lot different, but didn't they make Nate Scheelhaus the offense coordinator? Then he left too, I believe. So, or something was going on there. Is Scheelhaus still there? Is he their play caller? I thought he might have got it. I thought he might have got an NFL job too.
That's right. He went to the Rams. You're right. He went to the Rams.
So there's some turnover on that offensive staff. I don't know what they want to do. I've never liked their system. If it's similar with a new play caller, I'm not a big believer. I'm a big believer in Rocco Becht, not necessarily what's around him or how they play. Defensively, they're always going to be solid. It's just, they're not explosive enough for, that kind of team to just go beat juggernaut or, top team after top team week after week. They're going to drop a game because almost, what they remind me is like a little bit, towards those consistent 7-5, 8-4 Bill Snyder teams in 2.0. That's what they are. Like there's a hump that you can't get over because of how you play and what you have. And that's what I think with Iowa State. I wouldn't have them number 6. People will ask me what the hell I'm talking about. There's a team that last year really underachieved, but if you consider all the bad luck that they had, no quarterback in the schedule, Texas Tech.
Oh, Texas. Wow. Not UCF. I might have UCF.
Texas Tech was probably the worst luck team in the Big 12, maybe the country last year in terms of what they had at quarterback. Now, that could happen again. They always have this like a quarterback, but not just a quarterback, throughout the entire roster. One of the more trickier schedules in the country. They played Oregon last year, mind you. Had to go to some weird road trips as well, and they still won 7 games despite all of that. So a little good luck, a little progression in the fortune here, and I think the Red Raiders could have a really, really solid season.
Yeah, the Wyoming game was a pretty dumb one to schedule last year. I know that doesn't affect their conference standing. Yeah, I mean, look, I can get behind Texas Tech. I think I would still have Iowa State above Texas Tech, but that's, when you're talking about the difference between Iowa State, West Virginia, UCF, and Texas Tech, which are 6 through 9.
Dump West Virginia. Dump them.
I mean, I think they'll be solid. I just think they're like a 7-5 team.
I don't think West Virginia. I think West Virginia misses a bowl. I would have them below Iowa State, UCF, Texas Tech, maybe Baylor and TCU. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I'm not a believer in West Virginia being a legit conference title contender. They schedule driven last year. What happened to them? But I wouldn't be that low on them. I think there's not a ton of difference really between Iowa State, West Virginia, UCF, Tech. I mean, I really like UCF. I think KJ Jefferson, he was the Big 12 newcomer of the year, as voted in this poll. So I'm with everybody on that. I think that'll be a really good fit. And I think Gus Malzahn is just a really, really good coach. And UCF's been recruiting well and they portaled well. I think UCF will be dangerous. That's when, to me, there's then like a drop-off, like TCU, Colorado next at 10-11. Hilarious, by the way, Colorado shows up at what? What were they, like number 16 in the college football video game, and they're number 11 in the Big 12 preseason poll.
Yeah, the discrepancy there is unfathomable. I will say this. I don't know if you want to take on this exercise, but I will. Two teams that I think are worse than what this poll would suggest. Obviously, one of mine is West Virginia. And I think my other one's going to be TCU. I think that hill, that peak that they had probably keeps dropping. Otherwise, everything else looks about right, in my opinion. Now, higher than what everyone else has, obviously Texas Tech for me. And I would probably go Houston. I don't think Houston's going to be second to last.
Yeah, Houston.
Too good of a coach. Willie Fritz is too good of a coach. They'll win 4 or 5 games.
He is good. I'm very high on Willie Fritz. BYU, I could see BYU being a little bit more toward the middle of the conference.
They don't have a quarterback.
Well, I was just literally about to say if they had figured out anything at quarterback.
It's Jerry Bohannon.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Bohannon at times.
Come on.
Okay.
Actually, you know who the wild card is because the quarterback that they took out of the transfer portal has a chance to be really good, or at least he has a profile of a guy. DeQuan Finn at Baylor.
Yeah.
That could fix their problems. We'll see. But if he's really good, and he might be, that could change Baylor a little bit.
It could. It's funny. I was just going through this whole exercise on my YouTube channel. I was doing a tier list of Big 12 head coaches. And so I was like, what do you do with Dave Aranda, where it's like the guy has a 12-2 where he won the Sugar Bowl and won the league, but then he's like 11-23 outside of that. I'm like, well, what tier is he going in? And then
that's kind of Sonny Dykes now.
Sonny Dykes was a tough one where I was like, I don't know, is he like A or B, where he's been to the national championship game? He's one of 2 coaches in the league that have, along with Malzahn, but then everything else, I'm just so underwhelmed by Sonny Dykes. And the only reason he got to the national championship game is because the guy that he inherited that he wasn't going to start at quarterback had to come in and play because Chandler Morris got hurt, which how he looked at that with Max Duggan. So I don't know. I don't really think Sonny Dykes is all that good, but I guess you have to pay him some amount of respect for the 2022 season.
And another tough one is Joey McGuire, because you feel like he's doing everything right of how to build and round out a program at Texas Tech. And you feel like the ceiling is about to just explode there. But at the end of the day, they haven't done anything yet.
He has elevated a bit. They're 8-5 and what are they, 8-5 and 7-6, I think, in the 2 years. I would say he's slightly elevated it already, but they need a quarterback, man. I'm not a Baron Morton guy. I can't get behind. I know he hasn't really been healthy, but I don't see it really with Baron Morton the way that some Tech fans seem to. So I think if they had a little better quarterback situation, I would very much believe in them being a threat for the Big 12 title. So I don't know. I guess if I were to say team that's too high, team that's too low, I think UCF is a little bit too low. I would bump them up a spot or 2. Might have Arizona in the spot that I would say is too high.
Oh, they're 5th, and you still think it might be too high. Okay.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Looking at the bottom, I definitely think Arizona State is the worst team in the league.
Yeah.
Cincinnati, I guess if you wanted to argue Cincinnati could still be last or second to last. I do not see it at all with Scott Satterfield, but we're kind of, pulling it, grasping
the bottom,
a little bit down low in the standings.
And the bottom could fall out for TCU, I think.
I'm not high on Sonny Dykes at all. I don't know that I'm as low on TCU as you are. They have enough talent. They still have.
I would take Baron Morton over Josh Hoover.
Yeah, I don't believe in Josh Hoover. Don't get me wrong. But I would certainly, yes, I would take Baron Morton over him. Yes, correct. Yes. Anyway. All right. Well, I feel like we've probably pissed off enough people by this point. So,
yeah.
All right. We'll just move on. We'll see how good that looks at the end of the season. That's going to wrap it up for us. Shout out to all of our great sponsors, Holiday Distillery, Elenco. Remember, if you need home remodeling, make sure and hit up Elenco. New great sponsors of ours who are K-State folks, man. They are K-State people supporting us. So make sure that you get out and look them up. And, of course, Home Field Apparel. Roll Tide. Home Field Apparel today. DY rocking the Roll Tide. Thanks to Nick Springer behind the scenes. For Derek, I'm John Kurtz. Thanks for listening to another Dream On.